Hi guys.
Hello.
So today we're going to be having a conversation about The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. It's a book that we had read in our AP Lit class, and yeah. All right, so let's start.
Okay, so basically, like beforehand, before we talk about the book, we should talk about some research behind the book. Basically, the book was written, in the Victorian era where there was a lot of gender roles put in place, and women were seen as like weak, and they weren't, like seen as like in that powerful role that men had. They were set in different spheres. Women had to like um had kind of like the sphere where like they had to take care of children and tidy the house, and men had the like work and politics sphere. So women weren't really counted on as much or seen as serious. So yeah, that's just kind of some background information.
Mm. And along with that, the medical field at the time was mainly dominated by men. And in this book in particular, the narrator, who unfortunately doesn't have a name, is married to a physician who gives her a rest care for her postpartum depression. So in his mind, he believes this is going to like heal her nervous depression. And we found that one of Gilman's primary reasons for writing this book was to like advocate for women's rights and expose the harmful effects of like the patriarchal society and the medical practices of men at the time. So yeah, just for some background. And
Okay, so one of the key points of the book is literally the title, The Yellow Wallpaper, because basically the narrator is going through this state where like she's kind of sick or like has some type of condition, and she hyperfixates on this yellow wallpaper in this like nursery room that she's in. And throughout the entire book, like from the beginning, she explains how much the wallpaper has like affected her, and the like things it's like doing to her mentally, physically, and all that stuff. And I had a quote on page 10 where basically she said that paper stained everything that it touched, and she's talking about the yellow wallpaper. And there's also other parts in the story where she's basically describing the paper as herself, and how she views herself, and how she's basically affecting everything that she's around, and like in a way kind of damaging it. And that's gonna bring us to like how it's taking a toll on her mentally. And um, that also connects to the idea of mental confinement. And on page 12, she says, um, she's talking about like how she feels that there's somebody trapped in the wallpaper, and she says she just takes hold of the bars and shakes them hard. How basically like somebody is um, feeling entrapped, and like they're trying to escape. And that explains like the process of like mental confinement, and how mentally like she's just not doing okay.
mm. All right, and similar to what Jasmine was just referring to with the mental confinement, and the quote she had used in particular about there being walls. So when we think of bars. When we think about these bars, where exactly is she? She's in a nursery in her state that her and her husband had bought, and in this nursery in particular, it it's somewhere where she feels extremely like trapped. It's like she's the only one really in there. She has to like continuously look at that wallpaper and think about herself, and then think about everything that she's being put through. And the quote that I had found with this nursery was, the windows are barred for little children and rings on the walls. And another and mind you, this is all on page 3. And then she says, I'm sitting in this atrocious nursery. There is nothing to hinder my writing. So just off this description, she's saying the nursery is like somewhere where she feels trapped, like, and she's speaking very lowly of her condition, and basically just saying how this atmosphere of the nursery is just very suppressive and makes her feel like she cannot escape, right? And then we can move next to our topic of infantilization with this grown woman being in a nursery. Like, the your first assumption would be like, after a mom has her baby, she can it'll take her some adjusting to, get back to her regular life, but it's not very ideal that she would stay in the actual nursery. That's usually where little children are supposed to be. So along with this nursery taking a really big impact on her mental health, then not only is she being dismissed and overlooked by her own husband, but he refers to her as a child. On page 8 and page 4, he asks her when she gets up in the middle of the night, "What is it, little girl? Don't go walking around like that." And he also refers to her as a blessed little goose. So usually terms like little girl and little goose are kind of like play names given to children. And for a grown man to use this in reference to his wife, it establishes kind of like a paternal dynamic where he acts as a father towards the speaker and views her as the baby, although she already has had a baby. So it's like, why are you talking to your wife like this? And was it okay?
So all of this that me and Yugochi have said, it basically leads to the ending of the book, where all the things that she's feeling, all these emotions and this entrapment and the infantilization, it leads to her discovering that she's actually the girl inside of the wallpaper, and that she ends up, realizing her reality, and tears the wallpaper and escapes from her husband and escapes from what, where she's at. So yeah, that's the end. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys for listening. And we hope you like this review. Hope you learned something new. And have a great day.